Hello and welcome to Pricing College with your hosts Aidan Campbell
and Joanna Wells.
In today's episode we are going to answer a listener's query which was about companies, traditional B2B businesses switching from selling components or machinery to more of a equipment as a service system whereby equipment, machines, etc., whatever it is provided on a monthly or a weekly or whatever basis it is, almost like a joined up solution. Sounds interesting, eh?
It does sound interesting, and at the same time, the movement from a pure sort of products to equipment as a service model has been very slow in B2B. In spite of the opportunities that such a model does provide a business. I mean, if you look at it in theory, B2B businesses have, changeable costs, input prices. They're in margin constrained industries, there's highly competitive markets, slim margins. And often when you sell a product, you're selling that product one time, and often one time only. Maybe a lot of customers choose not to buy again, reducing the amount of ongoing revenue. And then, obviously executives are thinking, how can we increase our margins and ensure recurring cash flows? Well, that services idea concept comes into play. But really, The problem really stems, in my mind, is often customers really still don't understand the value of their offer, let alone what customers really value about the core offer, which is really the fundamental principles of an equipment as a service model. You've got to understand your customers, their needs, their wants, the risk factors they're trying to avoid very, very carefully in order to construct a pricing model and a services offering that is compelling enough for them to trust you with this shared partnership model. So then often businesses go into this from a very product-based pricing model to an equipment services model, just hoping for the best. And then it really does become just a test, an idea, because they really haven't done the hard work and the planning, understanding, identifying the value drivers of their customers.
Okay, I'm gonna lighten the mood a bit, and I'm gonna be a bit more positive about equipment as a service. I suppose some of this has come from the software as a service, that sort of trend in recent years in IT, SaaS, I think it's even called. I think there's clear pluses. Companies obviously don't have to buy equipment up front. They save on their capital expenditure. There's constant improvements in the machineries they're receiving. But the thing I'd also say is, there's a number of pluses from both perspectives. You're not having you're getting the problem you want solved, whatever that problem is. If that problem is road network maintenance, if their problem is advertising signs at a football game, whatever that equipment as a service you're getting is, you're ensuring that it's a lot of the work that you would have been doing is outsourced or removed. You're not constantly negotiating over price for each individual item. You're not constantly in contact to order new things. You're not constantly comparing costs or having that pricing, tough bargaining, that you're used to. And to some extent, you don't have to educate yourself as much about the alternatives that there are out there. You will, as a purchaser, you would still have to be aware of these things. But it's the solution that you're buying. You're buying the joined up, stuff arrives on time, stuff is done, stuff is maintained, equipment is of the highest spec. There will be terms and conditions, obviously, to what you sign up to. But that to me sounds very positive from the buying perspective. From the selling perspective, it also sounds very positive. And of course, this is the perfect world. As Joanna had mentioned, there are quite a few flaws. But this is the brighter side. From a selling perspective, it gives much more sustainable revenue, much more forecastable revenue, which companies love. It potentially gives you more flattened revenue, month by month. You're not having peaks and troughs. And it reduces the need to constantly be selling, pressure to discount, reduces that selling on each individual line, and also reduces the need to articulate what you're selling, to really go through those details. And it makes it more of a, we always say we're delivering solutions, but this is getting closer to it.
I don't know, maybe it's because it's the end of the week. I'm sounding a bit pessimistic, but I actually do think it's a great model. I think the caveat is, you've really got to do a bit of hard work. It's not just purely a model that you just whack out there and you go, we're going to get recurring revenues. No, we're not. But it's a shared risk model on both sides, both like from the seller and the buyer. And so you really need to know what those risks are and quantify those risks, because, let's look at a case example here with Rolls-Royce and the jet engines. When they changed to that model, actually they've had that model for quite some time, a services model, where the customers pay for the amount of time the planes are in the air. Then, of course, COVID hit, so there's been very, very limited planes in the air for the past 2 years, which has meant that, the risk has all been on Rolls-Royce. So what was a very profitable model turns into being quite a risk, of bankruptcy risk for a business. Obviously, they've got scale, they've got credence, and that they'll be bouncing back and with innovation, but you have to take in not just the interaction sometimes between customers, but obviously the overall economic and societal changes that are occurring right now. As we all know, we're living in unpredictable times, so we've got to be very clear and just safeguard our pricing models with real life scenarios.
I think what I would say here, we have to be aware of the difficulty in changing business model, moving from traditional B2B selling or renting equipment, and then moving to a solutions-based equipment as a service style industry. It's a complete and utter transformation of your business model. Most companies find it pretty hard even to operate the existing models they have. They find the pricing systems hard to implement. Very few companies do it. Well, nobody does it perfectly, and very few companies do it very well. With the majority somewhere in the must improve next year category in their annual review. So moving to a software or an equipment as a service system, it really is, you really are moving up to a new level of business approach. You need more skilled people. You really need to know the value of what you're selling, why you're doing it, the additional, the value adds you're providing. You really need to know your customers, what they want, and I think I said earlier, it was one of the positives that it decreases constantly selling every day, but it makes the upfront sell probably even harder, and you need to be really able to articulate that. That upfront sell, that, the sales and the marketing and all those aspects, you really need to transform that in your business to really be able to articulate that and get customers signed up to month.
I think that's a wise step. I think often, though, companies don't really understand they don't understand the offer of the core product range, just their core range, as it were, traditional just product, B2B products pricing, let alone understanding what equipment as a service business model means and the change in pricing required for that. So in a way, highly recommend what you need to do first, go back to first principles, understand what you've got now, what really is the value of your current offer, the core offering to your customers, and then start evaluating new offers within a new paradigm. Because strangely, businesses that have moved to equipment models have actually found that commonly their core offering, their existing offering, actually is more profitable and of more value to their customers than they thought, and even more valuable than the new offer. But not all the time, but sometimes this can be the case. So really go back and do that planning, do that analytics first, just to be really confident that you're not throwing away value, and that you're going full-heartedly into a business model that potentially isn't as valuable to your customers as you thought. And then in the process, you've obviously increased your capital expenditure, not decreased it, which was obviously your intention. And, obviously the risk is, again, more on you, and you've got to backpack and pedal like crazy to get back to, the starting point. It can be a very confusing thing. So you just do things methodically.
Yeah, it's, I think understanding your business is vital. Equipment as a service, it will suit some companies, it won't suit many. And many companies will not be capable currently. Obviously, companies can improve like anybody else, but it's not something you implement willy-nilly overnight or rashly without fundamentally really digging through the model that you have. It's an interesting one. It's probably easier for a new company to implement, someone who's starting up, than an existing company. Obviously, changing is harder than starting afresh, but it's an interesting one. It's one we'll keep you updated on, over the next couple of years, I guess, through this podcast and other media. And it's great to see new business models evolve. We've seen outsourcing, we've seen, software as a service, and now we're seeing that implement more as well in traditional B2B. So, hope springs eternal. We'll leave it there today. Have a great day.
Before I just clock off, there is a process that you can follow. It isn't just you go from one model to the other. There is a phased plan and process that can get you there safely. It doesn't have to be one thing or the other, and you can phase each phase in a way that suits your business as you reveal and learn more about your business, your core offer with data and information from your customers. But I think, as Aidan's quite rightly said, I think it's time to wrap up today. But I think we'll revisit this topic because we've had quite a few questions. It's quite a meaty topic, and we'll come back to it at a later date. If you have any questions, feel free to email us, give us a call. I'm happy to discuss any of the questions that or topics that you want to cover. I really appreciate the feedback so far. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.